The summit now in day 2, right? We have that family photo, the usual photo op, and then a dinner. And I can probably hazard a guess that they did not see Trump next to Emmanuel Macron.
I mean, they get along somehow. I mean, it always looks like they're wrestling along. No, I mean, it's in The Hague, which is surprising. I thought it's going to be in Brussels. So it's in the backyard of Mark Rutte, who used to be Dutch Prime Minister. Yeah. So in a way, he pulled it off. He made it 5%, and the German Chancellor supported him on this one. So for Donald Trump, it's a big win.
Yeah, but I mean, Macron's been out saying, just post the U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities over the weekend, that, hey, this is not something that, democratic countries should be doing. He's literally questioning the legality of that move. Is this going to gain traction at the NATO summit, or is everybody still, I mean, Rutte himself seems to be more keen on appeasing Trump.
Yeah. No, I mean, Macron has to deliver this message to his home crowd. He has to say it in order to actually look that he distanced himself from this kind of starting bombing campaign. Clearly, the German Chancellor has been backing up Donald Trump. He thinks it's not illegal. Rutte made it very clear he doesn't think it's illegal. So in a way, the big supporters are there, and Macron will definitely not spoil the party.
Okay, so he comes into, Trump that is, comes into NATO with one tick-the-box win, and that is the Israel-Iran ceasefire. He's looking for another tick-the-box win, which is 5% defense spending. We were talking about this offline a couple of seconds ago. The smart part of the 5% is that 1.5% soft spending, right?
Yeah. Well, it's on security, and you can label anything security. 3.5 is going to be in hard defense expenditure. I mean, looking back, Donald Trump was right in the first administration when he was reminding the Europeans, stop being a free rider. He asked for 2% or 3%. Now they are mostly above 2%, heading towards 3%. So 3.5% seems to be within reach, and 1.5% security. And I guess it's not just Trump breathing down the Europeans' necks. It's definitely also the war in Ukraine, which has basically lifted the spirit in order to do something about it. And I guess it's good for the economy. You have huge supply chains waiting for the money to come in. It's not just tanks, it's going to be drones, it's going to be software. So in a way, to divide it by 3.5 and 1.5, as Mark Rutte has done, is quite a smart move.
And the key point here, we talked about this offline a couple of seconds ago as well, that 1.5, it's easier to fudge, as it were, right? Because it's a soft spending on infrastructure and related stuff. And, I need to make the point here that a lot of defense technology is dual use, has commercial as well as military applications in any case.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen the war developing in Ukraine. I mean, 30% of the people fighting the war have no military training. They're handling drones. It's mostly young people, kids even, that are flying bombs over the Russian trenches. So in a way, the definition of dual use, of course, gets wider and wider because the way how the war is being conducted is away from this hardware that we have seen, tanks and artillery moving more towards delocalized war spending. So in a way, it's going to be interesting to see. There will be a lot of spending on software.
Yeah. So here's the thing, and we're showing Rheinmetall, German industrial or military giant, makes tanks and the whole lot. They've been in business for many, many years. But the future for U.S. defense spending and European defense reindustrialization could involve some of these legacy names, but more likely, we are hoping at least, will involve new names, possibly driven by private capital, right? I mean, in the U.S., you've got, obviously, we know about Palantir already, but there are a number of other ones that are not public yet, but which are at pretty high valuations already. Is the same thing going to happen in Europe?
I mean, you definitely Rheinmetall, you have Thales, you have Safran. I mean, the French and the Brits have a very solid military industrial complex. The Germans have basically neglected theirs. But we see an emergence of hidden champions in Germany and in Austria and other countries that go into drones, that go into more local warfare, definitely development of software, which is very important. So it's going to be basically, we have to see how Europe is shaping up its kind of expenditures. Who's building the planes, who's going to build the tanks, who's going to build the drones. That has been always a huge quarrel, particularly between Germany and France, by saying the Germans do the tanks, we do the planes. Now we have to see how much Rutte can actually manage to streamline these supply chains in the military industrial complex.
But I mean, there is history, there's a track record of that kind of inter-European cooperation, right? I mean, Airbus is one great example of that. The Eurofighter is another.
Yeah. I mean, the Eurocopter, the helicopters and stuff. So, yeah, we have to see how we can actually get some sort of private-public partnership going between governments and business. Again, many think now that Airbus was a genius development by former Bavarian Prime Minister Strauss. That was about 40 years ago, you know. We have to have that again in order to actually get going. There has to be a strong government demand story. That's what we need. That's what reliable is there as a demand for industry to feel like they can invest in factories. We can't flip-flop and coming up with some sort of idea for how much we want to spend and then maybe withdraw and do something different.
And the new and sort of positive part about this, Joerg, and you're obviously from the private sector, right, is that, you know, with governments under budgetary as well as debt pressures, right, private capital and involvement is going to be very much, it's going to be crucial to this.
Yeah. Well, definitely crucial because the innovation is not with the government but with the companies. Yeah. But again, if we have the demand story there, we can replicate what NASA did for the US in the 60s, what Airbus did for Europe in the 70s and 80s. Just there has to be a predictable demand story for private enterprises in order to come up with money into research labs, into cooperations with universities. The whole ecosystem is waiting for predictability.
So let me ask you, right, I mean, all this is going to take not just money, but also energy, right? Europe made a not a great bet, right, on cheap Russian oil. We all know how that turned out. People have been talking about an explosion of LNG in Europe. Are you confident that's going to happen?
Well, it was looking back, I mean, the piped gas from Russia was a reliable source for energy for 30, 40 years nearly. So in a way they backed it up. But again, the dependency was too big. Yeah. And now turned out to be strangling the European economies. Sure, there has to be different sources. There has to be LNG coming in. Again, we have a lot of gas also in North Africa. Again, this big discussion between Spain and France, which has not been resolved. We are sometimes our worst own enemy in Europe in order to actually go ahead. And then, of course, is renewable, you know, which is of course solar and wind. At the same time, you have nuclear back as an option, you know. So energy does not just come from LNG.
Fair enough.